The material contractor role will be used for documenting QA/QC records. And so here we are looking at the home page. And what we'll find is that there's a home button, which will allow the user to navigate back to this page at any time in the system. There is a previous button, which will move back one page within AASHTOWare project. There is a My Pages button, which acts as a favorites bar. And so on any page of your choosing, you can click this Remember This Page, such as like that, and then it'll be available on the My Pages in the future. Below, we will find the quick link section. Which is this row here at the top. This will give a hyperlink to the related areas in the system depending on what page you're on. So if I'm within a sample record, it'll give me a link back to my overview and such. Below that is our contact information for AASHTOWare project support, our shared line phone number, as well as our email. Either of these will go to anyone on the AASHTOWare project staff. On the right-hand side, there are global actions, which there's a My Settings and a My Outbox. These don't have much functionality, so they can be ignored. And to the right of that is the log out and return to the log on page. This will log you out once you're done using AASHTOWare project. So down at the bottom here, this role is going to be used to just create sample records and document testing out in the field. So we have our sample record overview. Here we have a search bar, and the search bars function by you can type in any string of characters and it will narrow down the list that's below it. So I'm looking at the sample record overview. So if I wanted to type in the last 4 digits of this sample record, 5323, then that would be the only thing that shows up. This search functionality engages after you reach 3 characters. So something like 031 will then give me any string in here with 3 characters. The search bar also functions off of material names and material codes. To the right of that is an eraser. This will clear anything that's been entered into this field, as well as to the filters and sorts criteria on the right. So once clicked, I then just need to click Show First 10, and it'll bring up the list below. And this will show up in various places throughout the system. To the right of that is the filters and sorts, and you can see that there's a number of filters and sorts that I've created in the past. If I want to create a new one, I just need to click the advanced at the bottom, and it'll bring up this window. This window can be used to select any of the previous filters I've created. And I can edit from there, or I can update. We'll just go with default. So I can choose to filter by a particular contract or sample date or sample ID or status. So in this case, maybe I only want to see sample statuses that are complete. So when I have that, I have a sort of by created date, so the order of the sample records will show up in newest to oldest. And then down below, I have the ability to save this criteria as whatever name I want to call it. So since I'm filtering to completes, I can call it complete and save and apply. In this case, I have none that are complete. So we'll go back to advanced. And we can set up a filter by, say, contract contains TRND601. So this would be a filter that only shows sample records that are linked to this contract. I also have the ability to make this a default setting. Anytime you select a default setting, that will be how the page will appear anytime you come to it until you uncheck this box. So I can save and apply. And now it's only showing me the sample records that are linked to that contract. And even if I reload the page, it's still on that filter criteria. Um, Filter criteria can be a pretty powerful tool. You have the ability to add stacking criteria to narrow things down. This isn't particularly useful until you start getting a serious list in here. When there's only 7, not a big deal, but if you end up with 50 or so sample records, it becomes pretty useful to be able to narrow down what you're looking for. So below that, we have an Add Sample Record button. By clicking that button, it'll allow me to create new sample records. Below that, it has all the sample records that I've created in the past. I can open these up at any time just by clicking on the name. So if I need to finish something up, or I'm curious about what values were entered, just give it a click. All right, so let's do a sample record. So I click the Add Sample Record button, and it'll take me to an Add Sample Record screen. Here, I need to enter the material as far as what the sample record is representing. And then I need to enter a sample date. So today's date. And on the right-hand side, based on the material that was selected here, it'll tell me what additional information is required. So in this case, for a Portland cement concrete sample, I need a source, I need a facility, and I need an SMFMI, which is selectable after the sample record creation. SMFMI being a source material, facility material identification. It's just a way of tracking things based on what the source and facility are. So this is yes, this is yes, this is yes, and the SMFMI can only be selectable after the record is created, so I won't be able to select it yet. But on my source and facilities tab, I can give that a click. I have a select primary source button. And so in here, I can find all the sources that NDOT has identified. I also have my search and filter here. So if it's a case where you're always, you have a long period of time where you're selecting the same sources, it might be good to narrow this down using a filter. And since I'm just doing a demonstration here, we'll go with what's on top of the list. So I'll click it, give it a green check mark, and then I'll do add to sample record. So that is now filled in here. And the previous page says I also need the facility, or in this case, the plant, so that I do the select primary facility button. It is best to do the source then facility, as the facility list will be narrowed down based on the source selection here. So I do select primary facility, same thing as the previous, select source. I get a list. In this case, there's only one known. So we check the box, add to sample record. So now my source and facility are identified. Here I have a Capital Concrete Lincoln plant number 1. So with all that information selected, I click save. And AASHTOWare project will go through the process of creating the sample record. So here I get a nice green message saying that sample record BS 2022-04-2209-1017 successfully saved. These green messages will show up as confirmation messages, letting you know that what was intended to happen happened. Using AASHTOWare project, there are 3 types of messages like this. Well, I guess technically 4 types of messages that will pop up. There's this green box that will show up that's confirming everything worked the way it was supposed to. There will be yellowish orange boxes that will pop up. These are known as warnings. And it's a case where things worked, but the system has decided it needs to notify you of certain situations. The common one that shows up is if there is a test, a sample record test, that has been indicated as failed. It lets you have this a notification to say that it failed in case you missed it, which isn't necessarily wrong. It's just worth noting and being aware of. The third type of message is an error, and errors will show up in red. It'll be a red box. An error means that things either didn't save, or AASHTOWare project ran into an issue, or information is missing. In cases of error messages, those should be read kind of in reverse. It'll give the system error as far as what's wrong, what didn't go right in AASHTOWare project, and then the last sentence of that error will indicate to the user, in layman's terms, what went wrong. So those are those 3. And then there's a 4th message, and it's more just information, and it's this blue type of message here. And here it says sample record. Tests may not be assigned to sample records without a destination lab association on the test tab. We'll come to this here in a bit, but that would be found here on the test tab. Once this gets selected, this blue message will go away. So it's information, a reminder, not something to be concerned about. So back to my sample record. It's been created. I've got a number, the number being my initials, then the year, the month, the day, followed by the time stamp of when the sample record was created. Continuing with our sample record, on the left-hand side, we have our material code and name. That came from our add sample record screen. We then have the sample size and sample size units. This would be the size of the sample that was collected. So it might be something along the lines of 1 pound or 10 or in this case probably cylinders, so 4 each. Below that we have represented quantity and represented quantity units. This is the quantity of material on the project that the sample is representing. So it could be something along the lines of 300 cubic yards. Below that we have the sampler ID. So this would be the person that collected the sample. And after that, we have intended use. So this would be, this is a field as far as indicating in the simplest and most straightforward terms how the product was used or how the material was used on the project. So it could be something like mainline paving. On the right-hand side at the top, we have the sample date, which came over from the add sample record screen. Sample status, in this case, this is pending. As tests get added, it'll move to an in testing status. Once tests are completed, can then move to a pending authorization. And then once it's authorized, it'll be complete. Below that, we have the authorized by and authorized date. When these fill in, the record will become locked. So none of this information can be modified at that point, and none of the test information can be modified at that point. If a correction needs to be made, it's just a matter of contacting your state rep or the AASHTOWare project staff or the lab associated to the sample record. And last, on this general tab, we have the link to. This allows us to link this sample record to other sample records. There isn't any rules currently on what needs to be linked, what sample records need to be linked together. Right now, it's just a case of if there's a reason to have a reference between sample records, this is a way to do it. So all that filled in, I can click save. It's not required to click save moving between these tabs, but saving allows that information to be backed up. So if for whatever reason, a loss in internet connection or you accidentally close the browser, you don't lose what you've already filled in. So moving forward, working through the tabs from top to bottom, we have source and facility. The field of SNFMI is now available, which originally on that add sample record screen, it indicated that this was required. So I can press enter and pick. So in this case, 47B, 3500, slip form. Can then move to the contract tab. And much like the sample record overview, I have the search button. This will be used to filter any sample record line items that are linked. But I have to, so to be able to use this, I need to do the select project items button first. So I'll do that. I then have the contract line items that I have contract authority to. So in this case, for TRN D601, I only have one line item. So it's project item 003, 10-inch concrete pavement, class 47B 3500. And then I have two material sets possible. Only difference being one's class B and E aggregate and the other one's class R aggregate. If a mixed design is being used, then the class R material set needs to be selected. If on your project, there's usually a mixed design and you need to select this class R item, it'd probably be best to set up a filter to do just that. And it'd just be a matter of doing filter criteria material set contains class R, and I can give it a name of class R and make it as my default setting, then save and apply. So now anytime I come to this select project items, it's going to be defaulted to this. I can just click the ones that are available and click save. If I need to select something different, I can use my eraser and then all the line items will become available. So got my selection, it's adding it, and it's saved. So here it's got my contract, I expand that out, and it'll show the line items. Next tab down is tests. And this is where we're going to get rid of this blue message. We need to select our destination lab. So I press enter and I get this contractor destination, which is a universal destination. So I have that picked. I can click save. And now my blue message has went away. The other thing that's changed on my sample record is now this assign test button is no longer grayed out. And in this window, what I'll find is I have this one choice. I'll give it a green checkbox, click forward, and then confirm. And now my test has been assigned. The other option I would have here, and I'll show that now, I'm going to remove this test. Given that there's only one test here that can be assigned, I can use this blue triangle here, and I can click the assign default test. And when I do that, it'll automatically assign the test. So from here, it's just a matter of going into the agency view, which will be the AV-air content/unit weight testing. And that will take me to the agency view, which will be where we fill out our test information. And so to start, I need to fill in whatever air result is needed to be used on the proportions. I need to select the method of testing, which will be QA/QC. And then on the right-hand side, it's got my min and max. So I can start filling this out. And click Save. So after the first save, some additional fields will show up for each air test. I have the ability to click this new button. If I have multiple air tests within that same represented quantity, in this case, that represented quantity 300 cubic yards, I can continue to just document multiple airs. So I might have one at 740, another one at 8. And whenever I get to the air test that involves the verification, I can choose that QA/QC without the contractor bit on the method of testing. And that can be filled out as well. Save that. And that's how to fill out the air tests. For each row that gets added, that'll increase the number of test instances. In this case, I have 3 rows, so I have 3 instances. It will also be the responsibility of the verification tester to complete this test in an AASHTOWare project, as their data will need to be verified or even entered. So save is complete here. I can just go ahead and close this test. I could also look, you can see that this is a pass. All the errors are within spec. So I can mark the test itself as a pass. And that's good to go. So that is how to do a sample record. It'll then be the verification tester's responsibility as far as completing the sample record, moving these tests forward, reviewing the numbers that were entered, and then authorizing the record. Once I'm done, I can click home, and that's it.